Undercover CEO discovers incredible truth behind a dishwasher working 60-hour weeks without pay. A heart-stirring journey of hope and resilience. In the heart of downtown, the restaurant thrummed with life. Waiters dashed past carrying trays of sizzling dishes, and the air was thick with the intoxicating aroma of garlic, spices, and fresh herbs. Yet, hidden behind the kitchen doors, the real story simmered: a world of struggle, sweat, and unseen dedication. Sarah, a determined dishwasher in her late 20s, scrubbed and rinsed with weary hands, her heart beating in rhythm with the relentless clatter of pots and pans. Her dreams never left her, even as she fought to support her single mother and younger siblings, working 60-hour weeks without so much as a paycheck. Every morning, Sarah rose with the sun, stirring a pot of hope as she prepared breakfast for her family. She believed fiercely in breaking the cycle that had imprisoned her family for generations, dreaming of a brighter future in the land of opportunity. But that hope often felt outweighed by exhaustion, her back aching from the constant labor, and the stigma that viewed her role as invisible. Just a dishwasher, they'd say, yet she was far more: an unrecognized hero in a bustling world that often forgot the hands that kept it spinning. As the undercover CEO donned his apron and stepped into the kitchen, he was struck by the sheer intensity of the work. Each scrub of a pan felt personal. Each dish that Sarah handled told a story of resilience. He joined her through the relentless rhythm of the shifts, exchanging stories. Sarah's laughter had a warmth people missed in the chaos, a light that sparked a connection. Their bond deepened, woven together by shared struggles under the weight of the plates. Just when the reality of their struggle emerged, Sarah stood up, fueled by a fire to unionize the kitchen staff. She rallied her coworkers, a brave stand against their oppressive management. But threats of dismissal loomed like dark clouds over their heads. The CEO felt his stomach twist. He understood the stakes now. This fight carried weight far beyond their kitchen walls. The deep economic divides lay bare before him, a stark reminder that power often overlooked those who labored hardest. In a moment of feverish intensity, Sarah's efforts exploded into the public consciousness. As news of her initiative spread, faces of support and opposition stood at the ready. The tension mounted. He felt the weight of his privilege pressing down. How could he have been so blind? He had to stop merely sympathizing, he needed to act. With a resolute heart, he stepped closer to her cause, determined to lend his voice in solidarity. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah prepared to speak at a community rally, her voice trembled behind the mic, revealing the weight of her dreams to a crowd eager to hear her story. The CEO, standing among them, felt his heart race. She spoke about family sacrifices and the fight against neglect, each word vibrating with authenticity. It was a moment that could change everything, one that required truth and courage. As the crowd fell silent, he realized he must reveal himself. But was it too late? What would happen if she knew who he really was? The air was thick with anticipation as they both stood on the precipice of transformation, their futures entwined in a shared struggle. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart pounding louder than the crowd of onlookers. She gripped the microphone tighter, feeling the cool metal bite into her palm. The faces before her blurred into a sea of hope and anxiety. With her family's sacrifices nestled like stones in her heart, she began to speak. The words flowed out, seemingly more powerful than she had thought possible. We are more than just workers. She cried, her voice growing stronger. We are the backbone of this restaurant. Without us, nothing works. It's time for us to be heard. The laughter and camaraderie that once filled the kitchen clashed with the reality she faced. Every shift spent battling grease and never-ending dishes now felt like a lifetime's worth of courage poured into that moment. The CEO, standing among the crowd, clenched his jaw as she spoke. He desperately wanted to reach out, to shout that he understood, that he was with her. But he also feared the moment his identity would shatter this fragile world they had created. He moved closer, feeling the collective breath of the crowd. The electric tension fed his growing resolve. As Sarah finished her speech, her face shone with a mix of triumph and vulnerability. The crowd erupted into applause, their support a wave that washed over her. It was not just approval, it was recognition. But then came the moment of reckoning. As the applause faded, the CEO stepped forward, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. "Sarah," he began, letting the word hang in the warming air. The crowd turned, curiosity morphing into confusion. "I need you to know something." The microphone crackled. "I'm not just another face in the crowd. I'm the CEO of the restaurant." Gasps echoed in the audience. Sarah's breath caught. She looked at him, a mixture of disbelief, anger, and an unyielding flame of defiance flickering in her eyes. "You're kidding, right?" she asked incredulously. "No, I'm serious," he continued, his voice firm yet vulnerable. "I came here undercover to understand, to see the struggles you and your coworkers go through. I never imagined it would change me this way. It has." Stunned silence enveloped the crowd. As Sarah's mind raced, she felt the walls of her resolve begin to shake. What now? Would they trust him? Could he really help? The stakes had just escalated, and uncertainty tangled with her hope. "Why should we believe you?" she finally asked, her voice steady despite the tumult of emotion in her heart. "You've lived in a different world, one that hasn't seen the grind we face every day." "I know. But I want to change that," he vowed, desperation coloring his words. "I want to be part of the solution, and I need your help. This isn't just about business anymore, it's about people." The crowd quieted, absorbing the mix of anger and possibility swirling in the air. Multiple voices began to rise with questions, demands, and cautious optimism. Sarah's pulse quickened. Would they dare to take this risk with a man who, until moments ago, was just another face in the crowd? As the crowd buzzed with uncertainty, the tension shifted. Many still held on to skepticism, yet a growing number leaned toward hope. Sarah stood at the center of it all, caught between anger, betrayal, and an undeniable craving for change. She met the CEO's gaze, searching for sincerity. Could he really be the ally they needed? Her heart thudded like a rolling drum, a tumbling mixture of fear and brave aspirations dancing within her thoughts. "Fine," she said, breaking the silence once more. "You want to help? Prove it." And with that, the air crackled with new energy and possibilities. The fight had just begun, and Sarah knew there was much ahead. Could she trust him? Could he truly ally himself with the battered ranks of workers, stand with her, and help ignite change? As uncertainty loomed, the next challenge beckoned. The community rallied around her, united but fragile, ready to confront an unyielding system. And as Sarah grasped the microphone again, she declared, "Let us show them we are not just dishwashers. We are the heart and soul of this place." With their eyes fixed on the future, a new chapter of struggle and alliance awaited. What would it take for change to truly unfold, and would Sarah find the strength to lead her team through the storms yet to come? Sarah's heart raced as the pulse of the crowd began to thrum beneath their feet. The moment she had called for action, filled with fire and fury, felt like a tipping point. She could feel her breaths coming in quicker succession, the weight of expectation pressing down around her. Was she really ready for what was to come? The CEO's eyes wide but earnest bore into hers with a sincerity that was hard to shake off. A mixture of hope and doubt danced within her like two rivals fighting for dominance. But one thing was clear, she couldn't just press forward alone. The stakes were too high. "Listen, everyone," she shouted, raising her voice above the murmurs. "We've spent too long being invisible, too long accepting scraps of change while the heart of this place beats behind unseen walls. If we want our voices heard, we have to come together. We have to make him see us. A gradual chorus of agreement rippled through the crowd. Familiar faces lit up with sudden resolve. Rita, the single mother who scrubbed pots amid the clatter of clinking dishes; Lars, whose calloused hands worked tirelessly as a line cook, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. Their faces provided Sarah with strength, like pillars of support in a storm. The CEO, sensing the tide of support shifting, began to step slightly forward. "I mean it. I want to help you all." His voice rang with urgency. "If you can lay out what you need, I will advocate for each and every one of you. Together, we can change the system." Skepticism and hope intertwined among the crowd's expressions. Whispered conversations and uncertain glances shared a collective inner struggle. Trusting him could mean the difference between suffering in silence and achieving real change. "All right," Sarah said, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let us start with the basics. Speak up. What do you want?" Rita was the first to raise her hand. "We deserve fair wages. No one should work 60-hour weeks and still struggle to pay rent." A chorus of voices chimed in, each demand building the momentum like a rolling avalanche. "Tipped wages need to be raised." One shouted. "Better work hours." Came another cry. "Healthcare," shouted Lars, his voice resonating with passion. "We need benefits. We work hard, we deserve to be taken care of." The CEO nodded, taking notes. Sarah watched as he recorded their concerns, a breath of transformation crossing through the air. She noticed how he shifted, seeming to unearth something deeper within him. It was no longer just business for him, it was personal. Yet, as the names and numbers flew thick and fast, old fears hung heavily in the background. Would he really push for change? Would he be just another executive who spoke sweet words but failed to deliver? The ghosts of broken promises loomed like shadows. "Stay focused," Sarah urged the team. "We're not just rattling off demands, we're laying out the groundwork for a better future. We're here to make a real impact." The CEO stepped back into view, addressing the crowd with newfound determination. "Each demand you voiced is important. I promise to take them to the higher-ups. Together, we can forge a new path." The cheers surged again, but it struck Sarah that the real challenge lay ahead. If he was serious, if he was genuine, would the management embrace this shift? What pushback could they face? As the crowd clapped and chatter bubbled with excitement, doubt nagged at Sarah's heart, but so did an undeniable sense of purpose. The fire within her beckoned her forward. "Now we need to get organized," she declared, adrenaline coursing through her. "Let us set our next steps." The crowd erupted with excitement, but simultaneously, questions hung in the air, creating a thick cloud of uncertainty. Would their efforts be enough? Could they sustain this newfound momentum? As plans began to form, Sarah glanced back at the CEO, still so unfamiliar and yet undeniably part of their fight. Could he stand with them, or was he destined to remain what he always had been, a figure in a suit, yet another layer of the system they planned to challenge? Something shifted deep within Sarah. This was only the beginning, but the end was still unknown. Was change truly possible? She drew in a deep breath, feeling the weight of each decision ahead. What obstacles awaited them on this journey? And at what cost would this transformation come? Sarah felt renewed energy surge through her as the crowd buzzed with ideas. The urgency in the room was palpable, and she knew they were on the brink of something monumental. Voices intertwined, creating a chorus of demands that echoed like thunder. "More training programs," shouted Jerry, an older worker with silver-streaked hair, who had seen countless faces come and go. "We deserve to learn and grow." "Safety gear. We can't keep working without proper tools," chimed in Mia, her voice cutting through the noise, advocating for their well-being. Amid the increasing excitement, there was a growing trepidation within Sarah. Each shouted demand was a raw nerve laid bare, and she wondered if they were ready for the tidal wave of change they were stirring. Would it come crashing down upon them, or could they ride it to safety? All right, everyone, she said, raising her hands. The swells of noise began to ebb. We need to prioritize. What's the one thing we all agree on? The crowd fell into a murmuring hush, contemplating their shared desires, their sacrifices. Finally, Rita spoke up again, her voice steady. Wages. Without fair pay, everything else is meaningless. Nobody should have to worry about paying their bills after working hard, Lars added, echoing Rita's sentiments. A ripple of nods and murmurs rippled through the crowd, like ripples on a pond, spreading their collective resolve. Wages it is, Sarah confirmed. Let us prepare a petition, something clear that outlines what we need. We deserve to be heard. As they organized into groups, different energy filled the air. Hope began to overshadow the lingering doubts. Sarah felt it spark within her, igniting her courage. Would they truly get the attention of the management? The prospect alone was exhilarating. Then, a voice broke through her thoughts, but what if the CEO doesn't follow through? It was Lars, the one she considered the backbone of their plans. What if it's just words? The silence that felt heavy, each person grappling with the same fear. Sarah took a small step forward, eager to reassure. Look, I understand. We're taking a risk, but we can't keep standing still, waiting for changes to happen. This is our chance. The eyes in the crowd shifted, some began to nod as if seeing a light through the fog. Together, we can make them listen. Sarah pressed on, desperate to kindle their hope. But we also need to be prepared for pushback. They might fight us. They might try to undermine us. That was a hard truth. The speculation about the management's response hung in the air like storm clouds, ready to unleash their fury. Then we stand together, shouted Rita, her voice vibrant and loud. No matter the cost. Cheers erupted again, filling the space with determination. Sarah felt her heart swell. But beyond the cheers, a nagging question haunted her. What if the pushback came from within? What if their unity faltered? What if someone decided to break the silence and side with the management? They continued, breaking into groups to craft their petition, ideas bouncing back and forth. Sarah felt a rush of pride looking around. Everyone was engaged, focused. They were a community, a force, but as she watched them work, a shadow flickered in her mind. This was just the beginning of their journey. They would face resistance not just from their bosses but potentially from each other too. Commitments could waver, resolve could falter. When she caught sight of the CEO taking notes at the side, his presence hovered like a double-edged sword. Did he truly want to make a difference? Or was he just playing the role that was expected of him? Just then, in the midst of the chaotic energy, Sarah made eye contact with the CEO. A moment of silent communication mingled with uncertainty. What he would do next could shift everything for them. As plan started to solidify, her heart raced again. With change on the horizon, it also ignited something deep within her, a realization of just how much each step would matter. Would they seize their moment, or let it slip away? Sarah knew their fight was only just beginning. And that question would echo, reverberating louder in the days to come. What sacrifices would they have to make for their voices to finally be heard? The atmosphere was thick with excitement and apprehension as Sarah and her coworkers gathered around tables strewn with notepads and pens. The buzz of creativity blended with the weight of their combined fears, creating an electric charge in the air. All right, let us break it down, Sarah said, resting both palms on the table. What do we need to include in this petition? We want to make it compelling. She could see the gears turning in their minds, each face reflecting hope mixed with anxiety. Jerry leaned forward, tapping his fingers on the table. What about workplace safety? That has to be up there with wages. People can't work efficiently if they're worried about getting hurt. Mia nodded eagerly. Exactly. I mean, look at our equipment. It's falling apart. We can't even do our jobs properly. If they don't care about our safety, why should we care about earning them money? As the ideas flowed, other voices chimed in, each suggestion propelling the momentum forward. Yet, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty lurking just beneath the surface. They were juggling demands, but what if they dropped the ball? Okay, so wages, safety, and training. We're building a solid case here. Lars' voice broke through her thoughts, but his brow furrowed in concern. But when we hand this over, what happens if they get angry? What if they retaliate? The weight of Lars' words hung in the air. A chorus of murmurs rose, anxiety prickling at their shared vulnerability. We can't focus on what they might do, Sarah said, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. We have to think about what we could gain. Better pay, safer conditions, rebuilding our dignity. Yes. Rita exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. If we stick together, they can't ignore us. Looking around, Sarah saw emboldened faces. This wasn't just a group of employees, they were becoming a united front. But still, the flicker of doubt nagged at her. What if someone among them cracked under pressure? What if fear drove one of them to betray their newfound solidarity? Just then, a soft knock at the door interrupted their fervor. The CEO stepped inside, a notepad still in hand, scribbling down their discussions. A murmur rippled through the room, buzzing with uncertainty. Was he there to intervene or to truly listen? Sarah felt her heart race as he took center stage. The room stilled, every eye glued to him. I'm here to hear you out, he said, his voice deep but calm. I know things haven't been easy, and I want to understand your concerns. Your voices matter. She could hardly process his words. Was this genuine? He looked like he was anticipating the backlash, yet there was a spark in his eyes that suggested he might actually care. Do you mean that? Sarah couldn't help herself. The question escaped her lips before she had time to think. Of course, I do. I want to make things better. The sincerity in his gaze shot through her anxiety, igniting a flicker of hope. Then let us tell you what we need. Sarah blurted out, her emotions boiling over. Not just for us, but for everyone in this factory. We deserve a chance to thrive. We deserve dignity. The crowd erupted into cheers and encouragement, the energy in the room surging once again. Seeing that moment of unity felt euphoric, yet in the back of her mind, she still sensed the looming fear of what would come next. Was this really the start of something significant, or just another round of empty promises? As Sarah stood before her team, determination etched on her face, she felt the chains of doubt loosening. Yet, with the CEO's potential cooperation looming over them like a storm, she knew that much lay ahead. Could they transform this passionate surge into a lasting change? And, most importantly, could they protect their unity amid the inevitable challenges when the dust began to settle? With the adrenaline of hope pulsing through her, she took a step forward. The battle was on, but the real fight was just beginning. Would they conquer, or would they face betrayal within their ranks? The atmosphere shifted again as the CEO nodded slowly, acknowledging Sarah's fervor with a serious expression. The cheers from the crowd mingled with a swell of skepticism. It was a rare moment, one where the weight of their collective struggles bore down, but even the whisper of hope didn't drown out the sound of uncertainty. Let us sit down together, shall we? He motioned toward a table, his stance less authoritative now. As he pulled his chair closer to theirs, Sarah could see the vulnerability in his eyes, a slight crack in the polished exterior of the CEO persona. She marveled at this unexpected turn of events. Could he really be open to change? As he read through their notes, one by one their demands echoed around the room. Workplace safety was at the forefront, followed closely by fair wages and better training programs. Each suggestion was met with thoughtful pauses from the CEO. I can't promise immediate results, he said at last, but this could certainly start a conversation. Conversation. The word hung in the air like a promise yet to be fulfilled. They had come here expecting confrontation, not collaboration. Yet the more they talked, the more they felt the power of their voices rising like a choir demanding change, demanding respect. We've been patient too long, Jerry chimed in, arms folded defiantly. How many more safety incidents need to happen before something changes? The CEO's gaze shifted over them, and there was a moment of silence. His demeanor remained calm, but he looked torn, as if the weight of their words was beginning to settle heavily on his shoulders. "I understand your frustrations," he replied, a hint of sincerity cutting through the formalities. "But some things are more complicated than they might seem, and just like that, Sarah sensed it. The hesitation, the reluctance, it was there. The reminder that something was undoubtedly blocking progress, something beyond her grasp. What could be holding him back? As her mind raced, she glanced around the table. The determination in her coworkers' eyes was evident, but beneath it lay fear of the unknown, fear of someone losing their job, fear that this was all just show. "Then let us tackle those complications together, openly," Sarah suggested, her voice calm and forthright. "We want to understand why changes haven't happened yet. What's really stopping you from making this place better?" For a moment, the CEO sat quietly, his pen hovering above the notepad. Then, as if weighing his options, he finally nodded, leaning in closer. "I appreciate that. Maybe I can share more if you're willing to hear the truth." The tension in the room thickened. Everyone held their breath. What truth? What hidden barriers were keeping them shackled to the status quo? Sarah felt her heart race again. This could be the key to understanding everything that had felt so hopeless. Yet, a flicker of fear wormed its way in. What if the answer was something darker than she could imagine? "Please tell us," Sarah urged, her eyes locked onto the CEO. It was now or never. As he opened his mouth to speak, the room hung on the edge of anticipation. Would this be their breakthrough, or was it just another thread in the tapestry of broken promises? Then, just as he began to reveal something crucial, the door burst open again. A frantic manager rushed in, eyes wide with distress. "We need to talk. Now. There's been an incident with one of the teams." The sudden shift caught everyone off guard. Sarah's heart sank. What now? Would this derail everything they had just built? With her pulse quickening, she exchanged worried glances with her coworkers. What kind of incident? How would this affect their fight for change? With the CEO's words still unspoken and a cloud of uncertainty hovering, Sarah steeled herself for whatever was to come next. What lay ahead could either shatter their hopes or galvanize their resolve like never before. As the atmosphere shifted once more and tension mounted, the question lingered: would they stand strong against yet another challenge, or would this be the moment that broke them? The manager's voice sliced through the tension like glass shattering. "We need to get to the warehouse. There's been an accident." His urgency was palpable, eyes darting from face to face, each filled with confusion and concern. Sarah felt dread coil in her stomach. "What happened?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The CEO exchanged a glance with the manager, and in that brief moment, she noticed a flicker of something in his eyes: fear. Guilt. An employee from the shipping team got hurt. "It's serious," the manager replied, almost breathless. "We need everyone's help to secure the area and get the affected person out." Before anyone could react, the CEO shot up from the table. "Let us go," he said, his authority returning as he motioned for them to follow. The atmosphere shifted, excitement replaced with urgency and anxiety. As they followed him out of the conference room, Sarah's mind raced. The struggles they had laid before the CEO just moments ago felt distant now. This wasn't just about negotiating better working conditions anymore. It was about the very real consequences of neglecting those conditions. They hurried down hallways lined with flickering fluorescent lights, the echo of their footsteps filling the air. Sarah caught glimpses of her coworkers, their faces a blend of determination and fear. What if the injury was severe? What if this incident was another example of the very issues they had been fighting against? When they reached the warehouse, the scene was chaotic. Several employees gathered around a stretch of floor covered in spilled boxes and scattered supplies. A stretcher lay nearby, ominously empty but surrounded by anxious faces. A groan echoed in the distance, intertwining with the frantic shouts of supervisors directing workers to clear space. The CEO moved quickly, issuing calm orders that brought some measure of focus to the crowd. Sarah found herself drawn to the commotion. She spotted one of her closest friends, Amy, sitting on the ground, gripping her knee with a pained expression. "Are you okay?" Sarah rushed over, kneeling beside her. Amy's face was pale, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. "Just twisted it, I think. I tripped over a box." Her voice trembled as she looked at Sarah, fear shimmering in her eyes. "Stay still. Help is coming," Sarah said, but her own heart raced. The ramifications of this injury felt much larger than just a sprained ankle. It was a wake-up call. The commotion faded into the background as the CEO returned, crouching beside Amy, looking genuinely concerned now. "We're going to get you taken care of, Amy," he said softly. "I'm so sorry this happened." At that moment, Sarah saw the CEO not just as a figure of authority but as a fellow human being facing the very real consequences of the system they had all been part of. The barriers between management and workers seemed to dissolve in the heat of the moment. A distant paramedic siren grew louder, chirping through the anxiety-filled air. Sarah felt a surge of hope. If the CEO felt this impact, this fear, this urgency, perhaps it could ignite a deeper change. As the paramedics arrived and began assessing Amy, the CEO turned to Sarah. "We'll get to the root of this. I promise." His voice, though firm, carried an undertone of sincerity that hadn't been there before. In that moment, Sarah felt a strange blend of relief and determination. Maybe this incident could be their turning point. But then, another troubling thought settled in her mind. What would this mean for everyone else? For the people who didn't have a voice, who didn't have a chance to speak up in moments like these? As the paramedics lifted Amy onto the stretcher, a thought nagged at Sarah. Would the CEO keep that promise once the dust settled? Could this incident truly shift the narrative they had been fighting against? The questions hung in the air, heavy with the weight of all that had happened, and as they turned to leave the warehouse, Sarah realized that this was just the beginning. Would they find a way to make a long-lasting change? Would they finally uncover the truth behind the silence that had endured for so long? The future felt uncertain, but one thing was clear: they were all in this together now. The fight was far from over, and the stakes had just gotten much higher. The hum of the warehouse faded into a hushed murmur as the paramedics wheeled Amy out. Sarah's heart raced, not just with worry for her friend but with a growing sense of urgency that buzzed through the air like electricity. She noticed the faces of her coworkers, a mix of apprehension and unity. It was almost as if the chaos had awakened something deep within them, a bond forged in the heat of urgency. As the curtains of the moment began to drop, Sarah caught the CEO's eye. For a brief second, she saw a flicker of something beyond authority in his gaze. Was it humility? It was hard to tell, but the feeling that this accident could lead to real change spiraled through her. "Hey!" A voice pulled her back to the present. It was Danny from the logistics team, his expression grave. "Do you think they're going to take this seriously? You know, like actually do something?" Sarah shrugged, the weight of uncertainty settling in again. "I hope so. If they don't..." She trailed off, unsure how to articulate the dread creeping in. The accident had cracked open a reality that felt impossible to ignore. Danny nodded, his brows knitted together. "It's just that this isn't the first close call we've had. Last month, someone almost went down on the dock. They swept it under the rug. I can't help but wonder if this will be the same." The uncertainty was palpable. The room hummed with a collective fear, one echoing Danny's words: would anything really change? As they stood in the aftermath, the CEO was flanked by the managers now, their discussion a hushed negotiation, urgent yet weary. Sarah stole glances, catching snippets of conversation filled with corporate jargon about safety protocols and best practices. It didn't feel like enough. Moving to the side, Sarah leaned against the cold metal of a shelving unit, her mind racing. That urgency, the sense of being seen, would it really turn into something? What would it take to shine a light in the darker corners of their workplace? Suddenly, a figure moved toward her, pushing through the gathered crowd. It was Melissa, another member of the shipping team. Her face looked worn, eyes wide with anxiety. "Sarah, I need your help. Can we talk?" Sarah straightened, surprised but feeling a spark of determination. "Of course, what is going on?" "Last week, we noticed an issue with the safety measures on the loading dock. There are things they haven't fixed, things that could cause worse injuries. I think we need to raise this, especially now." Melissa's voice wavered but was laced with urgency and a hint of bravery. The wheels began to turn in Sarah's mind. Perhaps this was the moment they could shift the balance. "Absolutely, we should talk to the CEO. If he is serious about this promise, he needs to know," Sarah replied, her resolve firming. Melissa nodded, her eyes lighting up with hope. "Let us do it. We can't wait any longer." As they approached the group, slowly gathering their courage, Sarah felt her heart hammering. A collective strength flickered between her and Melissa's shared courage, the kind that comes from standing up not just for themselves but for everyone who felt trapped in the shadows of fear. But as they drew closer, a sinking feeling hit her. What if the CEO didn't want to hear this? What if they faced backlash instead of change? What if they couldn't pull off the shift they so desperately wanted? The questions loomed large as they reached the circle of managers. Sarah took a deep breath and spoke, a quiet yet powerful force emerging from within her. They were ready to fight for their voices, ready to give voice to those who felt silenced. "Excuse me," she said, her voice rising above the murmur. And then the floor beneath them shifted again, setting off a chain reaction that neither of them fully understood yet. Would they be met with open ears, or would there be resistance? As she looked around, she saw eyes turn toward her, and in that moment, everything felt possible and terrifying at once. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was abundantly clear: this was a pivotal moment, and she could feel the weight of it on her shoulders. How far would they go to uproot the system? What truths were still hidden in the shadows, waiting for light? As she began to speak, every ounce of fear twisted into a surge of courage. "We need to talk about safety regulations." Sarah's voice rang out, clear and determined, slicing through the murmurs of disbelief. The crowd shifted, surprise painted on their faces. Trepidation and anticipation hung in the air thick enough to taste. The CEO turned slightly, interested but guarded. The other managers quirked their brows, expressions bouncing between skepticism and curiosity. It wasn't every day that someone in the ranks dared to speak out so boldly, especially during a chaotic aftermath where masks of professionalism often reigned supreme. "Go on," the CEO said, his demeanor neutral, eyes locked on hers. "You all know about Amy, right? She's not the first to get hurt here. Just last month, someone nearly fell on the dock by the unmarked hazard. If we don't take real steps now, if we just shuffle things around like before, how many more injuries are we going to see?" She pressed, her hands shaking slightly at her sides. Behind her, Melissa stood with a mix of fear and admiration. She could feel the weight of every worker's silent call for justice echo through Sarah's words. Those in the crowd exchanged glances, eyes wide, mouths pressed in tight lines of concern. The CEO's expression softened momentarily, as if he were wrestling with the truth before him. "You're right. We need to assess the situation. But what do you propose we do?" Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment. The push she needed to ignite a conversation that had lingered in dark corners for too long. "We need a transparent review of all safety protocols. Let us bring in a third party to help us. Make it clear that we care about our staff, that we won't back down until things change." Whispers rippled through the crowd. But will they actually listen? Danny muttered beside her. A flicker of doubt crept in, snaking through the courage she had found just moments before. What if this was all in vain? The CEO's brow furrowed, clearly weighing his options. "You do realize that creating change takes time, right? It's not as simple as it sounds. But it starts with us speaking up, with opening the dialogue. Sarah countered, emboldened. There's power in our voices, and we need to show that we're serious about our safety and well-being. It's time to step out of the shadows. In the crowd, one of the warehouse workers, Omar, nodded. Yes, right. We all see it, we all feel it. This has gone on for too long. We need to be heard. His voice was strong, and it ignited a wave through others. Murmurs of agreement swelled. Sarah felt herself catching fire with their shared resolve. What had started as a personal fight for her friend was morphing into a collective demand for respect and safety. This was bigger than just one incident, it was a call to arms for every individual who had felt overlooked. Okay, the CEO finally said, drawing a deep breath. If we're going to do this, it starts with a meeting. I'll arrange for it. But I want all of you to prepare your thoughts. We need specifics. The buzz of excitement was almost tangible. Tight grips on hands and shoulders offered strength. They weren't just employees anymore, they were a force united in purpose. But as the energy filled the room, a shadow of doubt lingered in Sarah's mind. What if the meeting didn't go as planned? What if the higher-ups fell back into the old routines? Could they face the pushback, the potential fallout? As they broke off into small groups to discuss what to present, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something massive. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. Sarah, are you ready for this? Melissa whispered, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and fear. I think so. But I know this is just the beginning, Sarah replied, glancing back at the CEO deep in conversation with the managers. Uncertainty rippled within her, but so did hope. As they stepped away from the buzzing group, uncertainty filled the gaps where clarity should have been. Would they truly make the changes they needed? The road ahead was foggy, but for the first time, they had a chance. To cut through the mist, and with resolute determination lighting her heart, Sarah whispered back, "Let us be the change." In that moment, she knew everything hinged on tomorrow's decisions. Would this be their breakthrough or another silent battle lost? The answer felt just out of reach. The next day dawned with an electric anticipation that coursed through the restaurant like a live wire. The echoes of yesterday reverberated with every breath, the urgency of change and the fierce desire for justice pushing them forward. As Sarah arrived, the buzz in the air was palpable. Her coworkers gathered, each face etched with a multitude of emotions: hope, fear, uncertainty. The weight of their mission hung heavily above them like a storm cloud, yet the determination was unshakable. All right, team. Today, we finally speak up. Sarah called out, her voice clear and unwavering. We're prepared, and we're not backing down. The crowd erupted into murmurs of agreement. She could see the nervousness in their eyes, but it was accompanied by a flicker of defiance. They had rallied under the banner of unity, a collective force determined not to be swept aside. As the appointed hour approached, Sarah found herself in the makeshift meeting room, surrounded by her coworkers. The CEO entered, flanked by the managers. The gravity of the moment settled over them, transforming the chaotic atmosphere into something far more serious. Thank you all for being here, the CEO began, glancing at their expectant faces. I want to hear each of your concerns. This is your chance. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, feeling the strength of everyone behind her. We want to talk about safety regulations, she said, her heart pounding. There's been too much silence surrounding this issue. Our health and well-being are non-negotiable. The crowd murmured in approval, and she pressed on. This needs to be addressed, starting with a comprehensive review of our protocols. We deserve to work in a safe environment. The CEO nodded, leaning closer as if to grasp their shared convictions. And what specifically do you want to see? His voice held a mix of interest and apprehension. Lars, a steadfast presence among them, spoke up boldly. The equipment isn't just outdated, it's dangerous. It creates risks that can be avoided. We need proper training sessions to equip everyone. His words ignited others to join in. A chorus of voices filled the room, each adding layers to their plea: fair wages, better safety gear, consistent communication regarding emergency procedures. As the demands rolled out, Sarah felt a swell of strength surge through her. Every word became a thread in a tapestry woven from the shared experiences of countless hours spent scrubbing dishes and working in fear of accidents. They were not just employees, they were a community, rising together against the forces that had kept them down for so long, but amidst the energy, uncertainty began creeping back. Would their voices truly reach those sitting across the table? Would management hear them or just nod in acknowledgement without any real change? The CEO listened, a furrow deepening across his brow as he took notes. He paused, looking up at them. "I want this conversation to matter," he said slowly. "If we're going to bring in third-party safety inspectors and re-evaluate wages, things will not change overnight. But I promise to push for this." It was a promise, but one tinged with the reality of bureaucratic delays. A quiet murmur rippled through the group, skepticism still lingering in the air like a thick fog. Then, unexpectedly, Amy, their friend who had been injured days before, spoke up. "We cannot afford to wait. I nearly hurt myself badly. Others might not be so lucky next time. Please, make these changes real." The room fell silent, the weight of her words striking hard. Vulnerability laid bare the risks they all faced. "I'll advocate for this," the CEO insisted, his tone firm and sincere. "But I need your voices during this ongoing conversation. Will you commit to working together in this process? I understand I'm not your enemy, but I also know that trust takes time." "Trust?" Sarah murmured, caught between hope and old wounds. "That's easy to say, but how do we know it won't just be the same as before?" The CEO took a step closer, a flicker of earnestness flashing in his eyes. "Let us create a Council A liaison team. That way, you can communicate directly with me, voice your concerns, and I'll ensure they are brought to the attention of upper management." As their collective eyes locked onto him, the promise of real dialogue sparked something fundamental. "Okay," Sarah said, the decision bubbling up from an unexpected place within her. "Let us try." The crowd around her nodded in agreement, a ripple of acknowledgement flowing through the group. With actionable steps unfolding before them, the tide of change felt tangible. They had ignited a spark, and if they embraced it fully, perhaps it would flower into something strong enough to uproot the long-standing problems plaguing their workplace. As the meeting concluded and fellow workers gathered their resolve, Sarah's heart swelled. Discomfort did not fade, but a glimmer of hope took its place, a cautious possibility that their collective voices might shift the course of their stories. They were no longer invisible. They were a force, pulling through the murky waters of their struggle toward the shores of a just future. "Okay, everyone," Sarah exclaimed, grabbing everyone's attention one last time. "We've done something here today. Let us keep the momentum going. Together, we will not only demand change but make it happen." A loud cheer erupted, echoing through the building, louder than any clatter of pots and pans ever could. This was their defining moment, and they stood united, a testament to the power of voices raised in unison. As they stepped forward into this new chapter, Sarah didn't just feel transformed, she felt the shimmer of possibility wrapping around their community. A collective journey had begun, one rooted in resilience and strength. Today, they had dared to dream. And that dream, their fight, would not fade quietly into the night. If you are inspired by all these incredible transformations and stories, don't wait not even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support and spread the word. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let everyone witness this journey. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.